Are you starting at the end?
Broadcast is live.
We are live,
Finally.
ladies and gentlemen. Finally, sorry
I
for the
always thought it was
technical.
pronounced live. The
It's
broadcast
live.
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 Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're live with Silverline's Wednesday Wham, the easy listening hour. Tonight we'll be talking about.
Live.
Tonight we'll be
God.
talking about Brent Larson's villainy from his past life.
Mm.
This is a therapy session. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us in our second half. Tonight's discussion is: Are we the baddies? How do we write villains well? So I'd like to start. Will you gentlemen give me one or two pet peeves about villains? What is done wrong with villains, especially nowadays? Or alternatively, give me your favorite things.
I will
Test.
say that I don't
Test
like-
1, 2.
Oh,
You're here.
I can't hear you.
uh-oh.
Check your ear pods.
Yeah, let me pop out and come back.
I hate it when villains can't hear us.
I know.
They pretend they can't hear us, but actually they're plotting evilly.
Yes. Evilly.
When I think about pet peeves and villains, I think about stupid supervillain plots. I don't mean story plots. I mean like when they're plotting. My go-to example. Can you hear us, Rob? All right. My go-to example is a Magneto in the first X-Men movie, where he's like, I'm going to create a machine and put it in the Statue of Liberty. And I'm going to make everyone a mutant. Like at that point, you're thinking, I wish I had my 13-year-old niece here. She could probably talk you out of it with her 13-year-old logic. Yet he's supposed to be a genius and he has all this power and stupid stuff, and it's supposed to show how evil he is. But really, it just shows how cartoony he is. I feel like we're done with that. We're over.
Yeah. I think we have moved on.
Yes, thankfully. So, yeah.
Rob, what are your pet peeves about villains? Oh well,
You should have been nicer, Rory.
Devices are not connected.
You should have phrased it.
I shouldn't have yelled at him. He just keeps leaving. one of my pet peeves is that 98% of villains, when in private, speak English. I'm looking at you, Hans Gruber. Alan Rickman, R.I.P.
I heard about them in Time magazine.
Are you doing a Die Hard?
I am getting a time loop thing here going on where I'm hearing you about 3 seconds delayed and regular.
That's
and
your super villain power.
When you move your hands like that, it looks like you're in a time loop.
I have the power.
Are you trying?
Rob, are you trying? We'll wait for Rob to catch up.
Okay, now
it worked.
I think time has. Yeah.
You're.
Oh man, it's still. I guess I'm just gonna have to. I'm gonna have to drop out. There's no way I can do this.
Okay, no worries.
It's so weird. You're on real time with us. We can.
Yeah,
see
you're fine.
You're fine.
If it's that bad, don't worry.
I may try to come back and see again, but it's
Yeah. Okay.
This is weird.
Somebody's cast a spell on Rob Davis. A time dilation spell.
Evil spell.
Well, now we can talk about him freely. now, Brent, you've written plenty of script, I imagine. Have you ever had to write a villain into your script?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Right
do you have
now,
a go-to characteristic or vice that you, or do you change it up?
Let me see. Let me see here. It depends on what I'm writing. Like, I've got a major villain in Kalis right now. Good. And when I hear him in my head, he sounds a little super villainy, but he's basically coming from the point of view of he's part of an evil empire. And he
born and raised?
Say again?
Born and raised in Empire.
Born and reared. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And he just kind of feels like they're supposed to rule. And because of that, he doesn't have to explain himself to anyone. He can kill anyone he wants.
Sure.
Everyone else should be his slave. Now, this all sounds like a cartoon villain. But what's funny is when I actually think about, guys like the ancient Romans or the Persians or whoever, this actually makes a lot more sense.
Might mix right.
The whole idea of equality among people is a fairly new idea in history. And if you have an evil empire, you have an empire that's so in control that they can control how they perceive themselves, then why not? In fact, it makes the most sense. So he's kind of fun to write, especially since his protagonists are the heroes of Kalis, and he, and they are supposedly immortal, and he has found a way to kill them. And so you've got kind of a fun, they're theoretically stronger, but he is kind of an alien and he has a way to kill them. So I also like to have my villains not super powerful, but they have to at least be some kind of a threat. Sure. Villains that are no threat are, it's funny to look at Spider-Man's rogue gallery and the idea that guys like, what's his name?
One for Daredevil was Stilt Man.
Stilt
Man.
And today you're like,
really?
how's this guy
a guy on stilts?
Bottom of the barrel.
Yeah. So I appreciate that, but you got to have somebody who makes your hero sweat. And if they don't, what they do is bring out something in your hero that's unexpected.
Right. Would you say like a meet the virtue to their vice?
Yeah. Or almost it can be the reverse too. I remember there was you remember the old Death of Captain Gene DeWolf storyline in what was it? Peter Parker Spider-Man, I think. Anyway.
Yes. Yeah.
It was
I vaguely remember that. Yeah, that's been a while ago.
Yeah. Well, the story centered on a supporting character of Spider-Man's who was murdered. And in the end, you find out who the villain is. And Spider-Man is so mad he doesn't pull his punches. And later on, you find out he actually seriously crippled this guy. And you're thinking, wow, I don't know how I feel about this. I mean, he had it coming. He was evil. And yet, you almost saw Spider-Man's vice come out instead of his virtue.
Interesting.
Which is quite a bold thing because we see his virtue all the time. It's interesting to see a villain bring out something else. So
yeah, that's interesting. That treads dangerously close to like the misunderstood villain that everything is nowadays. Like even Venom he's just an anti-hero. He's just misunderstood. It's like, I like my bad guys as bad guys and good guys as good guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like didn't Punisher's got his book yanked. He's no longer going to be published by Marvel for a while, from what I understand.
Really?
So I always kind of I read that somewhere. I'm not sure how truthful that is, but I read it somewhere that they're actually, because he's an anti-hero. He's going around trying to kill the bad guys.
Vigilantism.
That's a full out vigilante. And apparently they're going to give him a rest for a while. They're not going to do away with the Punisher. He'll come back.
No, gosh,
but they're giving him a rest. And personally, I think that's a good idea. I've never liked the anti-hero. Anyway, it's the bad guy's supposed to do the bad stuff, not the good guys. Like you were talking about the Spider-Man, where he nearly kills the guy and does some damage to him. But But you're absolutely right that there has to be some sort of fear of defeat or death for the villain to be scary enough.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I appreciate an anti-hero if it's an examination of something and the examination doesn't immediately delve into the, wow, man, people suck and being good is stupid.
Right.
That
Yeah,
is
give me a
not a
reason.
conclusion. That's way too easy. The best stories make you think, but that's not making you think. That's almost rejoicing in the non-thinking of things.
Yeah, he's got to have a goal and intention. And usually, when the bad guys think what they're doing is the right thing, which is why they're so gung ho for it. Nobody
Yeah.
does evil
Thanos is a
specifically
good
for the purpose of
example of
doing
that.
evil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanos is a perfect example of that, thinking that his snap and getting rid of half of the universe is actually going to be a good thing. And
Right.
So, and obviously, to the half the people that the half that disappear, that ain't a good thing. So, yeah.
And the ones that do crazy wild things just for the sake of doing it, like Joker, like just to cause chaos, there's either like a real big mental issue or that's just it. They just want to create chaos.
Yeah.
They want an absence of good.
Yeah, the speech he gave in Dark Knight was really compelling. Just the whole idea of, I like to turn their plans and I like to turn them around. And I'm like, that's not a bad apologetic for being Joker. So doing bad things, not because they're bad, but because people and their ideas of the way things should go. I mean, everybody experiences a feeling of, I want to push back on that. Usually it's when you get pulled over for speeding or when someone tells you to get back in line and you have that sudden flash that says, I don't want to do that. I want to do what I want to do. That's almost like the Joker's raison d'etre. That's what he does.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, usually so if he's creating the chaos, is that a form of, because I've made my list of like why they do the things they do. So it's ideology, personal goal, revenge, wealth, or just control, which I think maybe the overarching, mindset is just maintaining control of the situation. So if you're the villain that creates chaos and you control where the chaos is, you are in control.
Yeah.
Because it's just an absence of good, and you control where
it's
at.
I hadn't looked at it that way, but that's absolutely right. Yeah, it's a way to control your environment by destroying the environment, making it crazy. Yeah,
I think,
and that's where the best stories are going to come in, is when they actually make you question, or not so much question as look harder at things, because you could say,
think about it.
Yeah. I mean, a supervillain, like you said, Rory, can totally believe that what he's doing or she is doing is right. Like Poison Ivy comes to mind. She just wants to reclaim the world for the plants because of the terrible things people do to the plants. Okay, that sounds pretty good in theory. And but you're like, well, how hard are you going to push to make your goal a reality? And the problem, of course, is the more you push, more people are going to get hurt. But then you say, but my goal is so worthy that maybe people need to get hurt.
Right.
And then
that's you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet, right? And justify the means.
Right. And is that person therefore a villain? So we do like, villains who obviously are like, I just want more power, because it's easier to hate them. It's easier to say, you're a villain, and therefore be able to say, and I'm not like that. Therefore, I can totally hate the villain.
Yeah. I like when writing a villain, just like with Game of Thrones, it's perfect. Like, was it Joffrey? Like, everybody loved to hate Joffrey.
Yeah.
Like that, and like it evoked a disdain for the character. Like, if you can make your reader uncomfortable or angry at that character, if you can evoke that emotion, you've done your job. Because they will forever see that character like that. Even if there's some kind of redemption arc in the back of their minds, they will always be uncomfortable with that character.
Yeah. I mean, that's a funny example, because if you think about it, Ramsay Bolton is another character you just cannot wait to see how he gets it in the end. I mean, they were checking off all the boxes. How can we make the audience hate him more, to the point where they must have had a field day when they got to figure out what's the best way to dispose of Mr. Bolton. So
I think it's great to give your villain a vice or a character flaw, and then take it to the next level. Like if it makes you uncomfortable writing it, it's probably going to make people very uncomfortable reading it.
I have not actually experienced that. It makes me wonder.
No.
If I push myself.
It is a great literary exercise, and it does open up your brain to other options like military stuff. We did a lot of like anti-terrorism, force protection stuff. You have to think like the enemy, because we're America. We're the good guys, right? We're noble. We're virtuous. But there's a section of the military that has to be trained to think like the enemy, and then you have to reverse it on yourself. And like, how would you attack America? Well, now you got to reverse it again. It's like, okay, if I'm thinking like him thinking like me, I have to think like him like again. It's just weird wordplay in your head.
That explains domestic terrorism in somebody who makes that switch but didn't make the switch back. That last switch back is the one they couldn't make.
Yeah.
That's an interesting.
Was it Ted Kaczynski that just died in prison, the Unabomber?
Yes.
And now people are going back to his writings in the 90s.
Like he committed suicide. Now,
yeah.
I didn't see the details on that. But that wouldn't surprise me. A guy who was trying to disdain modernism, technology and all that. He was trying to get rid of all that, and you throw him in a jail. He's lost all touch with nature, which is what he wants to get in touch with. He's just inside these four walls. That would drive me. He was already insane, but that would push even an insane man to beyond where he was before. So it doesn't surprise me that he finally took himself out.
Yeah, some of the people were rereading his writings, manifesto, whatever it is from the 90s about government and technology and surveillance. I'm like, oh, he wasn't far off.
He wasn't too far off. No, that's what's really scary about him. He was right, but he was trying to fix it in the wrong way.
Right. Yeah.
Killing people is never the right answer, as far as I can tell. Hey, Timothy.
I guess that is always going to be a good way to denote your supervillain is how do they feel about people?
We are swell and handsome.
Yeah. If you've got people who say, I'm willing to kill people in order to advance my agenda, odds are good you can probably put that character in the villain category. But it's funny because you brought up Punisher, Rob, because Punisher is the worst of them because he's he probably kills men who have more morals than he does.
Yeah.
Which always made his book not terribly compelling to me. No. I didn't read Garth Ennis's run after his initial run because frankly, it was like it was reveling in the chaos and the violence and then trying to convince me that it was a reflection of honest, real assessment of life. And I'm like, yeah, I don't buy that for a second. So
it doesn't. Yeah. The Punisher never appealed to me ever. It's kind of like he would work best, I thought, like the Hulk did after early on in his quote unquote comics career. He started out as in his own book, but then he was actually more successful as appearing in other people's books. Other people's, I would think that Punisher would actually fit better in that context. How do you juxtapose the hero of that book against another vigilante who has no limits to how he's going to take out the bad guys?
He would be a good support hero.
How does your hero deal with that? So
that's good. What about taking a villain's vice, either his narcissism, his greed, or whatever, and like turning it against him? Do you think that's clever enough to beat the bad guy, or do you think the hero should be super smart, or just beat him up?
Whenever I feel like in order to defeat a villain, there has to be something other than fisticuffs or
other than destruction.
Yeah, having a villain fall for a stupid trick is that would be another pet peeve of mine. Villains who are geniuses who fall for a ridiculous trick.
Right.
I don't see it as much anymore, but I think, frankly, it's because everyone else is tired of them too.
Yeah. Well, that was a trope to the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, that's true. And I feel like the best, when I think about how a villain should end, I mean, this is basically a storytelling device, but you have to have the hero win in a way that is set up earlier and delivers. So there's not just defeat, but there's catharsis. You know, I mean,
that's a good
I
point.
remember
Closure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Avengers Endgame was a great example of, you know, everyone kept wondering, how is Thanos going to go down? I kept thinking it'd be cool to see him go toe to toe with the Hulk again and the Hulk win. But the fact is, we saw that already. That wouldn't have been it.
Quiet music.
So having him snap and nothing happen, and then Tony snaps, that was there was irony there. There was a bit of catharsis. There was a closing of a story arc.
Yeah,
that was quite masterful.
It was essentially a big middle finger to Thanos.
Yes, that's always the best.
Yeah.
You can somehow accomplish that. That's great. But you can tell there just how much thought went into that. I think defeating your supervillain requires that level of thought to be truly cathartic.
I am a fan of letting them implode on themselves, or giving them the situation, or like just enough rope to hang yourself kind of thing.
Right.
It's ancient. It's poetry. It's prose. It's called Psychomachia by Prudentius. Really expensive book if you can find it, but there's online versions, and it's a battlefield, and it's all the vices versus all the virtues. And they're all portrayed as women. And so my favorite one, I guess from a Lat professor, is anger and patience. And so anger is got all of her weapons and stuff, and she's just chomping at the bit to get into the fight. And patience is across the battlefield, just slowly putting on her armor, cinching it down one strap at a time, laying out all of her weapons, her swords, her spear, making sure she's got everything she needs for the battle, just double checking her armor. And anger's on the other side, just like screaming, "Let's go!" And just loses it and starts just chucking spears and throwing things across the battlefield. Runs out of spears, grabs her sword, starts running towards Patience. Raises her sword, goes to swing it, slips and falls on one of her own broken spears and dies. I'm like, that's beautiful. That is just
that's a great that's great. I like that a lot.
I'm trying to think of a modern example. I know they're out there. I don't know.
Sandman.
Give one right up.
I haven't.
Have you watched? You haven't watched it on Netflix?
Not yet.
There's a little bit of that sort of what you're talking about there, Rory. There's that sort of thing kind of going on in the Sandman series. That I never read the book, so seeing the
books are great.
The TV show on Netflix was kind of an eye opener. I really liked it. But there's a lot of that going on. Is that patience against anger? Very similar to that. I can't conjure up exactly what he's talking about, but that's what he was doing. But that's the kind of thing he's doing in Sandman. At least the TV show is, and I'm guessing that it's based very closely on the comic book. So that would be a modern example of that sort of thing, where one God aspect against another God aspect, and they play off of each other, and one plays against the weakness of the other, vanity or whatever the other person's weakness is. Vanity and narcissism.
Yeah.
And most vices would implode on themselves anyways, because there is an end to it.
Yeah.
While the virtues never end. There is no destructive end to virtue, but there is to a vice.
Yeah,
that's an interesting way you could probably play with that. I'm sure you could.
Yeah.
Another, I actually, it's funny the more I think about it, this is a device they use a lot in movies and comics, I think. But I actually appreciate it. It's when the villain somehow says something to the hero to re-energize them, but they do it thinking they're smart.
Thinking they're denigrating them.
Yeah. My favorite example that comes to mind is the movie LA Confidential, which is one of my favorites.
Mm.
And it's you've got a crooked cop at the end trying to convince the hero to join to not report his deeds to the police department. And as the squad cars start to arrive, he says, "Hold up your badge. You're a policeman." And that's all he needs to do. And the audience realizes, okay, this guy is done. It makes sense.
That's good.
And that happens quite a bit, I think. But I don't mind.
No.
It's in a way, it's almost the villain. I think that's the hanging yourself motif, because the villain is providing the impetus for his own destruction, which always makes it more satisfying.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, we're in our final minute here. So I want to say thank you again to our lovely audience who put up with the empty first half. I hope you listened to some nice classical music as you prepared yourself for...
A little dark in here at that time.
It was a little dark in here.
Comics can be dark.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
you know where to find us on the socials, everybody. I'm new. I'm learning, so we're not going to do an outro bumper. So we're just going to end with our usual make mine Silverline. Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for being here.